Art teachers of Reddit. What's you, draw anything you want, story. In early middle school, we did a project where we used cardboard draped in colorful paper matched to make a sound word, like wham, or crinkle. I was really into knights at the time, so I made the word that was the sound of someone unsheathing a sword. That word was schlong. I have a design your own monster Halloween lesson. Most kids draw cute ghosts or cool vampires. One 7th grader drew a sad clown hanging by a belt from a ceiling fan. He had issues. I got in trouble once for drawing a pooping butt. Little did my teacher know, but the drawing was actually a poorly drawn butterfly that ended up looking like a hairy pooping butt, and when asked why I put the details I did like the legs and antenna and proboscidea coming off the segmented body, I said, I dunno, don't they all look like that? I saw one a recess and thought it was pretty and wanted to draw it. Thinking of the butterfly, of course. Nope, I ended up having to see the school counselor. I was substitute teaching an art class. An 8th grader drew a picture of an adult woman molesting a child. I pulled the student aside after class and found out her aunt had been molesting her for years when she was babysat or came to visit. I reported it and her aunt ended up going to prison. Kids will sometimes draw things they wouldn't normally say out loud. High school 1977. Not a teacher. While everyone else was drawing Pink Floyd rainbows and peace signs all over everything, the biggest burnout in the class made a wide metal bracelet with intricate triangular designs cut out of it. He turned it in and got a great grade for the first project he ever bothered finishing and some well-deserved praise for his effort. Teacher handed our work back and first thing he did was grab a pair of pliers and bent all the triangles outward, making it a thick metal spiked bracelet. I found that devilishly, disturbingly clever. I just remembered, a poor little guy who drew a self-portrait. He drew with meticulous detail, and when it came down to drawing his pants he drew the zipper so carefully but it looked like a penis. I was flummoxed about how to tell him that people might see something there that he didn't intend. One kid had to have a meeting with the principal, her parents and the art teacher because the art teacher decided that because this 2nd grade girl only drew people without hands, the little girl felt powerless. All these adults question this child about the meaning of her drawings. She tells them, hands are too hard to draw. Former student here. We were supposed to do a bit of abstract artwork for a course assignment. My work was a framed square cutout from an old t-shirt I had previously used to help restain an old table. Not only did I get an A on the assignment, but I entered it into a silent auction later that semester and someone bought it. When I was in the 7th grade, our art teacher had us do whatever we wanted to be entered in the school art fair. I was really lazy and decided to just use every color of pastel that was available to draw a rainbow of sorts on a piece of construction paper. Then I tore it all into pieces and glued them all together again randomly. I called the piece, Life, and argued that it was supposed to represent the chaos and uncertainty that is life. It ended up winning first place in my grades part of the art fair, and I ended up getting a cool art set, but really it was just me being lazy and feeding some bullshit about a deeper meaning. Parent here, not an art teacher. In kindergarten, my son came home with a packet of finished assignments he got back from the teacher. One was a paper having them draw a body part with the prompt, "Here are my." Example given was, feet. What did my kid draw? Butt cheeks. Drawing of the back of a person with 2 giant, well-drawn, I might add, cheeks. My husband and I laughed our own butt cheeks off when we saw it. We kept the paper. For posteriority. As a kid was told to do a drawing that was gonna be put on a plate, drew my cat doing a poo. I was asked multiple times if I wanted to redo it, I declined the offer. So most of my life I ate off a plate with my cat on it doing a poo as it was my plate, and still do. My siblings had similar plate with a car and a rocket ship, mine is clearly much better. Was around 5 or 6 at the time and totally worth it, still have the plate. Edit picture. My brother was told to draw an animal from any angle he wanted, so he drew a dot and said it was a very far away lion. Student here. My art teacher was somewhat crazy. She let us draw anything we want, and to get 100% all you had to do was tell her it had a deep connection to the earth, or some other nonsense. I drew a jellyfish and told her it represented wisdom because it was immortal. When I was in 2nd grade, our teacher told us to doodle on the back of a quiz if we finished early. I decided to draw a house high in the sky with a long staircase leading to it. To emphasize its height I drew clouds, but it needed more. I decided to add in an airplane. Later my teacher called me to her desk and I got in trouble because the plane looked like it was heading towards the house, and this was right after 9/11 happened. Still have no idea what I was thinking. Not a teacher, but when I was in 7th grade, one drew a picture in my art class sketchbook of Barney and Elmo smoking pot and drinking booze, drawn with colored pencils and all. I showed it to my friends and they thought it was the funniest thing they'd ever seen. The art teacher, however, was not pleased, and sent me to the principal's office. The principal then looked through my sketchbook and ripped out all the drawings she deemed as inappropriate. It shattered my soul that day and I cried for some time afterwards. In fact, I think that's what ended my dream of becoming an artist. Fuck you, Mrs. Bareno and Mrs. McKeon, for robbing me of a better future. Not my story, but seems to fit here. When I was in school to certify to become a teacher, we had a former principal as a professor for one of our courses who was trying to illustrate how difficult it can be to manage parent complaints and how to approach those situations with administration. His example was how he had been called into a conference once with an angry mom and the elementary school art teacher. The mom was furious because the teacher had asked the children to close their eyes and draw whatever came into their imagination. His assumption was that a student had drawn something inappropriate. Nope. The mom was mad because summoning an image in one's mind was witchcraft. When I was around 8 or 9, I got into drawing cars, and simultaneously into drawing tribal decorations, probably not PC, but you know, the type a lot of people get as a tattoo, so I drew a car with tribal decal, and because of the hook-like shapes in the tribal decal, I inappropriately named the car, the hooker. When she was done laughing, my mom took the time to explain the world's oldest profession. Whenever I got to draw something on my own, I just drew fucking cake. It's not drawing, but I gave my high school kids a poetry assignment. They could write about anything that was school appropriate and have one curse word that wasn't a slur or the F-bomb. It had to include so much figurative language, etc. Girl turns in, Ms. My name is a bitch, a poem about how she's tired of writing poems and that she's annoyed with me for assigning so many. Includes all requirements. I have her a 96, a few errors, and the next poem she writes is, Ms. My name is a cool bitch, about how she was sorry she was mean. I rarely let them draw whatever, because they inevitably would draw predictable clichés. 8th grade boys would draw knives with blood dripping, or an eye, and girls a unicorn. Trying to get them to draw from life was tough. Science teacher, please draw a habitat of a predator. Me, draws white van. In 9th grade, as an end-of-the-year project, we could basically draw whatever we wanted and we had a week to do it. Me, being the little car nerd I am, drew the entire drivetrain and suspension of a Chevy K5 Blazer. I'm a art teacher, but this story is about my substitute teacher. I asked my students what they had been drawing when I was gone. The class was absolutely silent. Apart from some boys that were giggling, they were 13 years old. I asked what was so funny. And they said the substitute was great. At the same time, the girls seemed as they wanted to disappear from the classroom. So I asked why the teacher was great. And the boys just exploded. He told us to draw flying cocks. Well, I don't have to say more than that substitute teacher never come to our school again. In junior high, my art teacher pulled me aside to tell me that she was really impressed because I could draw better than her. After that, she pretty much let me have free rein as long as what I was drawing worked towards the lesson goal, such as shading, perspective, etc. For the end-of-year project, I did a Robotech Veritech fighter in stipple, drawn only using dots. The next year, when I would have had her again for art, she paid out of pocket for me to take an art course at the community college across the street. She was an absolutely amazing teacher. Not a teacher, but in middle school we got an assignment in art class to draw a still life of fruit. I thought the idea was totally boring and decided to put a creative spin on it. I drew a bunch of different fruits all sitting in the seats of a coliseum watching an apple kill an orange in the center ring. I failed the assignment, and my teacher even pulled me out into the hallway to tell me directly that she didn't like me or the work that I produced. Didn't let that crush my dream though, and I kept making my assignments weirder and weirder to piss her off. IDK, when I was small I remember we had to draw a popular myth in the country, so it's a little bit weird now to think that when I was younger I drew some Chindarin Eater demon thing in kawaii anime style. Student here, pulled up pictures of severe frostbite to draw on a piece of paper in 6th grade. I wasn't allowed to do that. Reminds me of that time I got suspended in kindergarten for drawing a shitty stick figure gun. I tried to save myself that day by saying it was a water gun since it was so shitty you couldn't tell the difference, but they weren't having it and little Plava 27 went home that day. We had 3 lessons for it. I spent 2.5 messing around and the last half copying an existing Bauhaus painting in chalk. That was the only good grade one got in art class. Not an art teacher, but when I was in late elementary, early junior high, my art teacher at the time gave us free rein. I had just learned what furries and pokemorphs, jajinkas, I think, were at the time. My art teacher thankfully just thought I couldn't draw werewolves for shit. Edit. A word because I can't Hechin grammar on Reddit. In 7th grade we were supposed to draw a fish made out of smaller fish. A few days earlier I had learnt that seahorses are fish and was obsessed with this small tidbit of knowledge and made a seahorse out of small fish. Got into a discussion with my teacher about whether I did the assignment correctly or not. 30 minutes and a Google search later I got a C, which fair, I wasn't the best painter. My art teacher's story about me is that I spent an entire school year drawing and painting planes. Must have been strange. Not an art teacher, but my daughter in 1st grade was given an assignment to write a story and draw. She wrote and drew a story about Horny the Rhino. I can honestly say I was one of the better artists at my school, asked to draw for the paper, designed t-shirts, mugs etc. and voted outstanding senior in art. I taught calligraphy and one of my logos became the state logo for the state science division. I'm also somewhat of a smart ass. We were assigned an exercise to draw our offhand, left if you're right-handed, etc. I asked the teacher, how far would you like us to draw to? Her response, well, you can draw all the way up to your elbow or cut it off at the wrist. Your choice. So, I drew it, cut it off at the wrist, with exposed bone, tissue and pooling blood. She was real careful with her instructions after that. My brother and his friend were 5 and attended an art class club. They got to draw anything they wanted. Our dog had just died so my brother drew the dog with angel wings, a pretty good one for a 5-year-old. The friend, who was a wild kid, the kind that always got detention later in his school years, drew a large wave and people escaping it. He explained that it was the tsunami of 2004, which had just happened. The moms of the boys and the teacher were swallowing tears when they saw the drawings. My art teacher literally wouldn't do this to himself. He always gives us a topic to draw about because if he says that cursed, draw anything you want, sentence to a class, no one would draw anything because they can't decide. Went to an all-girls school, they're very indecisive. We had a substitute art teacher once and she decided to teach us about H.R. Giger showing us concept art from the Aliens movie and such. For homework she asked us to look up more of his art, gave us a link to his main website. Almost every single picture on the site that she hadn't printed shown us already was of big weird alien robots penetrating women sexually. That was an odd assignment. Edit. No, the artist isn't named H.R. Ginger, thanks autocorrect. As an art teacher and former goth teen, nothing my kids have drawn has really shocked me. I've had to make kids change things that are inappropriate. One time a high school girl drew a hand giving the middle finger in chalk when we were drawing outside, so we changed it to a peace sign. I did have to call home for 2 first graders who were drawing pooping butts while I was giving instructions. Their moms and I laughed through the entire phone call. Fresh out of college, I got a job working with 1st and 2nd graders at an after-school program. My kids had journals that they wrote and drew in every day. Once, I had my 1st graders draw a picture of what they like to eat and write a sentence to go along with it. I was walking around the tables to check their work as they were finishing up and saw that one little boy drew a big brown phallic object with the word, cock, written across the front. Underneath, in proud bold letters, he had written, I like cock. I pulled him aside and asked him to tell me about what he wrote. Coke is my favorite drink, he told me. I had to explain to him that it's very important to spell it, Coke, not, cock. Too long did not read. Boy says he likes to eat cock. Obligatory. Not an art teacher, but I got a call about something like this from my kid's art teacher. She was 13 and in 8th grade art where she was told to do a pencil sketch of whatever she could think of. We had just moved, so the class had been working on this for a week and she had about a day. The teacher made sure the kid knew she would be getting an A just for turning something in. But because it was a new school, They were not yet aware that my kid has a morbid sense of humor and a fair amount of artistic talent that she built over the years. 2 days later the art teacher calls me to make sure that everything is okay with kid, because her sketch was of a live hamster in an electric coffee pot. It's one of my favorite pieces of her work. I used to teach painting classes at a community art center, and one day an older woman came in with her portfolio seeking a critique. It was actually a stack of landscape paintings with the Confederate flag in the sky of each one of them. At the time I genuinely did not know what to do, so I just critiqued the technical skill of each painting and offered her advice on how to get better results. It was awkward. I did my own installation art based on deep-sea creatures and got a good grade. At 5th grade we were supposed to build a key holder for Mother's Day. It was a square piece of wood with 3 hooks at the bottom, and at the middle was a butterfly, heart of flower. I picked the butterfly because fuck it I guess. Then we were supposed to paint it with crayons. My house had black and white furniture. I painted it almost all black. My teacher was horrified. I guess she thought it was macabre or something. I spent the next week at the back of our class trying to mend it, paint it with other colors or something. In the end the black butterfly still flies while it's hanging on the wall, so I suppose it went okay. I always hated this prompt. I can draw very well. I'm into realism drawing. Dig into my post history for proof. I can draw a lion, or a bear. I can draw you a house, or even a whole street of houses in perspective, or an entire cityscape with photo-realistic quality. Anything isn't a thing I can draw. Your prompt feels lazy and I feel uninspired. When the teachers say draw anything, I take things from everyone's art and mix them together. No one realizes that. Oh, I'm not a teacher, but every year in my art class our teacher would give the assignment to draw Santa Claus in an unexpected place. One year my classmate drew a very realistic and very detailed picture of Santa Claus in the strip club, throwing cookies to the strippers smoking a blunt. It was good, like really really good, but he was still suspended. We had to draw some brand logo and my friend thought it would be good idea to draw Durex logo. I think in the 3rd grade our teacher let us draw whatever we wanted after the whole 2 semester of my friend asking and annoying her about it. We didn't know what to draw. During the class he said something like, "This was a mistake for asking." I painted a portrait of what I thought Jesus looked like once in art class on a "draw what you want" day. Teacher held me back after class and asked me why I painted his hair green. That's the day I realized I was color blind. Not an art teacher, however I used to grade the weekly sketchbooks for my art class as a senior. One week my teacher gave the prompt, something with wings, so I'm grading all these sketchbooks that are 80% stick figures from kids that just took art to get an easy fine art credit. Lots of planes and birds. A few angels. Then I get to this one sketchbook that I know damn well belongs to a dude that's just coasting for the easy credit. I open it up expecting another stick bird and instead I'm surprised with this crude, but identifiable bucket of KFC wings. I lost my shit and cackled as I have him a 100 knowing my cranky ass teacher would have instantly failed him if she'd seen it.